So hey everybody, it's Cory Bretz from Heirloom Films and Storybooks, and I wanted to share with you a little bit of one of the things I do as a personal historian. Um, you've heard me talk about this last little while that I'm sort of working on my mother's story. There's this old saying that the shoemaker's children go barefoot. And I've been a personal historian now for 20 years, and I've made all sorts of documentary films and storybooks for local families and families basically all over Canada. And it's a real honor to get to sit there quietly and listen to the stories being told, and to be able to pass them on to the next generation with a video or a film. One of the things that I have come to rely upon when I start making a film for somebody, or when I am working on a book for a family. And the goal is always to be able to tell the family history and the life stories of the main characters, whether it's your parents or your grandparents, going back several generations. One of the most powerful things that we can use is a family tree. And let me just show you what I'm working with here. So I work with Ancestry. I work with Ancestry.ca or .com, and anybody can access it. You can actually build a family tree for free. You don't need to spend any money with Ancestry to do this, and it's very intuitive. You basically just enter the names of the people, enter whatever data you have for them, and enter the relationships, and it'll automatically structure a tree, kind of like what you're seeing right on my screen right now. And then of course I've shared it with my lovely daughter, and so now she can actually be tootling around understanding her own tree. But it's like anything, you do it a little bit or you do it a lot, and a little bit is nice, but I think that what my job is to do is actually to build at least in the case of my own family, to leave something behind that is rich and informational, and inspiring, so as I work on my mother's story, her name is Henrietta Lee. You can see her right there, and when you click on her photo there, you get some options: profile, search, and quick edit. If you're actually subscribed to Ancestry, you can, when you click the search button, it's going to bring up a search field that is going to search for her, and through all the databases that Ancestry has at their disposal. And they've got so much data. They've got census and voters lists, birth and marriage records, immigration, and then they've got oodles and oodles and oodles of other family trees. And you know what, you think, well, why would that matter? Well, it matters because all of us have second, third, and fourth, fifth, sixth cousins who are busily building their family trees. And how family trees work out is that somebody way over, on my fourth cousin way over yonder there, his great grandfather and my great grandfather were probably brothers, right? And so they share common ancestors. And then you never know where the family stuff got moved to, the old photos and films and records and stuff like that. So I find this really powerful to sort of gather all that information. So what's useful about a tree is that, like, and let's work with my mom, for example, because she's my project right now. As you know, I've been working on writing women's history, starting with my own mom. Of course, we do men's history, of course, but I'd say men's history has been well done throughout the years, but women's not so much. So if you click on the profile button right here, it brings up this amazing thing with 1, 2, 3 little tabs on the ribbons there, and it is basically it's 4 different ways of looking at the particular person. So the life story, I really love this because it's a conglomeration of little bits of tree, geography, and then sort of milestones in my mother's life. And I just actually learned a trick today. all of these photos are being added in a place called the gallery, which I'll show you in a minute. And the trick is if you add a date on the photo in the photo date field, it'll actually show it in this timeline. So now, you know, like the birth of her daughter Susan is right there in 1969, and then because I coded this picture with November 1969, it's showing right after that, and there's little baby Susan, right? So that's pretty cool that the photo ends up right in line with the life story, and you know, moving forward from that. And then what I discovered is we can actually in the bottom of a photo we can put a, actually it's the top, we can put a little description. Now I think there's a limitation on the number of words. I think you're probably like 500 words or whatever. You can't put tons of stuff in here, but you can put some, and this now becomes a storytelling device. And so one of my clients, we're working on a film about her family, not in the traditional sense, because we've actually spent our time working on building her tree and lining up all the photos, making sure that it's all organized, and then uploading it up to Ancestry. So she's actually, now that we've built all this for her mother and her father, she's going to actually verbalize it. You know, we'll record the sound of her voice, and then we'll add all the photos on top, and we'll use this kind of like a script. And that's a great way to do it. The other thing you can do is this shows perfectly well on your phone. So if you're with your grandkids and you want to tell them a bedtime story, this could be amazing. You could just show a photo, and let me tell you about your great grandma, you know, and you've already put a few words in there so you can remember what you're going to tell. This is the perfect bedtime storytelling device. So let me just jump over and show you on this other tab here. This facts tab right here, what this is all the facts that relate to all of the bits of sources that Ancestry has found. So for example, you can see a lot of voters lists. My mother, you know, dutifully, every time the enumerator came around, she and my dad listed their names down, and so you can see that it's actually linked to a residence when they lived in Calgary. There's this particular a voters list, and I just find it amazing that all this data is now online. What it's doing right now is it's dredging up a photograph, like a photograph of an old voters list from 1980. I don't know if we're going to wait around for it, but oh, there it is. Yeah, look at that. So you can see the actual the actual form. It's going to pop up on the screen here in a minute. And this isn't so much fun for voters things, but it's great when you're looking at census things. It was all written by hand, you know, going back. So this is in Calgary in 1974 it would have been. Where did I live? On Varsity Drive, I think, or no, I can't remember which. Verona Drive. I used to live on Verona Drive back in Calgary. There you go. Bretz, Gordon Auditor was my dad, Bretz Lee, my mom, right? So that's 4619 Verona Drive. I totally forgot my address. So it's really cool because that kind of, you know, if you're not sure what someone's chronology was as where they lived, all of these census records are there, and voting records and stuff like that, and it's all listed in it. It sort of confirms you're dealing with the right person. And then also in here you've got all the different relationships set up. This my father, which is my mother's spouse, and then there's me, and then my brother and my sister, and so it's kind of cool. And then the gallery, I absolutely love the gallery. So I tend to work with AC/DC and Photoshop, scanning and prepping images. So and then they wind up, you just upload them with this little upload field here, but they end up being put into this gallery here. So here's one of the earliest shots of my mother. And the cool thing is you can put that little description in, which then that shows up on the timeline story, as long as you've put a date in, and you say I've got a 1947 date in there, and you do that in the edit field. You've got the ability to actually use it, put a calendar date right in there, and that's the secret sauce here. And then the photo gets a name, and then you can put a description in that sort of winds up as a caption. So this actually is Fanny Butts, my great-grandfather Abraham Butts' wife. That's my mother's father and mother. So and then so here's my mom. She's, I don't know, she's probably 6 years old at the time. This is 1947. She was born in 1941, so that's Henry, or Lee as she went by. And there's my Uncle Marty, Martin Donald Butts, and he was like, what do you peg him, about 9 months old there maybe, and because he was born in 1947. This could have been 1948 by this point. But the cool thing is now we've got the photo in there. You can see on the right here that we can actually tag other people in the family tree, so that this photo is going to show up in their profile. So right now it's showing up in my mother's profile because she's tagged as Henrietta Lee Butts, but it'll also show up in Martin's profile and also in Fanny Silverman's profile, which is awesome because you only have to put the photo up onto Ancestry once, and then it'll be available and found. You've got the typical left and right buttons here, so I can actually scroll through images of my mother, and I'll have to go in later on and do some more additions to some of these, put some dates, and I've got a date and a title of the photo here, but I haven't actually listed the date in the edit field, so it's not actually showing on the family tree. Oh, here's a cool one. I gotta show you this. This is Christmas 1969. I am 6 years old, and I'm the guy in the middle there, and then there's my little brother Darren. My sister came along about November 1969, I believe. She was born in 69. Maybe she didn't come along till January, I don't know, but anyways, she's not in the shot, but she was just born. She was born in October, but we're not seeing her in this photo yet. She was just a newborn. Maybe she's having a nap. And there's my dad, Gordon Bretz, and my mom, there's Henry Lee Bretz, as she was known. I still remember those barrel of monkeys things. It was great fun to hang them all together and hang them everywhere. And so this was a brand new house we've moved into in yeah, that's the new house in North Delta, I believe. Yeah, and it just brings back memories. Yeah, of course, about this time my mother was starting to become ill. She had, when my brother was born, I believe just after he was born, she had postpartum depression. This was about 1965. He was born 65, and so she was depressed, and they gave her insulin shock therapy, which was, nobody ever does that now, and they're actually stopping to do it in the 50s. With some yokel here in Vancouver thought it'd be a great idea to give her insulin shock therapy. Well, anyway, she ended up with a full-blown case of diabetes, which she insists was because of that, and very, very brittle case of diabetes. And over the years, she got worse and worse, and ended up dying, 1989, from all of the complications of diabetes. And it was tough as a little kid. My mom was feeling unwell, and she was, in my judgment, she was cranky. But knowing what I know about diabetes and how you feel, she would have felt nauseated and exhausted and tired and probably a little ticked off as well. Yeah, so it's interesting, looking at your mother's story, I start to understand who they were as people. I think one of the things she did, a lot of things that I was very proud of. This is 1985, this shot here, and she had purchased a pet store in Surrey. My brother, I guess, and her were chatting one night, and he didn't know what he wanted to do with his life. He'd graduated, and so they got this great idea. They would buy a pet store, and I guess there was one for sale. And so my brother and my mom ran a pet store for a bunch of years, and I used to go in there. I was working at the government at the time. I used to go in there, and they'd have all these little puppies and birds and fish and reptiles. And my dad and my brother and my mom, they all got really good at caring for these animals, and I was really proud of them because they really cared for them well, and they treated each animal like it was the king, and I just felt really proud for them. I'd come in and clean fish tanks every now and then, and bird cages, and stuff like that. And that wasn't my favorite thing to do, but she inherited, or I guess a little puppy came in, a little Pomeranian by the name of PJ, who had a personality bigger than life, and so she ended up with that little dog and her her companion, basically, right up to the time she went into the hospital in November 1988, and he was then at home, but he outlived her for many years. Actually, that little guy, he was very feisty. So I wanted to show you sort of what we're doing here with this. Now, with this kind of technology, I'm actually screen recording through OBS right now. and then streaming it to Facebook Lives. That's how you're able to see me. But I could be easily screen recording this with also Snagit or something else, or Screencast or something. And then what that allows me to do is later on go in and lay down the images in a more smooth way, but my voice becomes a narration track for this kind of thing. So none of this is rocket science. Any yokel can do this kind of stuff. It takes some time to focus. But this video I've just done, now it forms a permanent record that my daughter can watch, or someday. She's already threatening having kids. She's 25, but honey, I'm sure you will when it's the right time. Don't rush. But those kids, my grandkids, someday will be able to watch this video and learn something about their great grandmother. My mom. And for my daughter, who actually never met my mother, I feel like I'm trying to educate her a little bit on who her grandma was and what was amazing about her. So, I'm Cory Bretz. I'm a personal historian. If you find this fascinating, this kind of stuff, passing on the family history, do it yourself. It's not very hard. You can start with a book like Writing Women's History, written by Marilyn Norrie. You can get that on Amazon. There's a book written by Vera Bloom, I'll think of it. Vera, anyway, she lives here in Vancouver, wrote a book about family history that I've used for years and years. Lots of questions in there. I've got a life story questionnaire on my website. If you want to download that, it's a great place to start. You can find that at www.heirloomfilms.ca. And if you are finding that this is all too crazy and complex, and you just don't have the time of day to do the heavy lifting on it, that's what I'm for. And you could actually hire me to help you build your family tree, help you gather together all the imagery, and then help you come up with a script, and so you could tell the story, and I'll handle all the recording for you and the editing, and you will have the most amazing gift to give to your kids and your grandkids and your great grandkids who aren't even born yet. So here's the thing: if you don't do it, who's gonna? You're the only one who knows your own life, and you're the only one probably who might even know your parents' story. So if you don't tell it, it's probably going to vanish, and I kind of think that's a little sad, actually. So I'm Cory Bretz from Heirloom Films. Thank you for tuning in, and it's been great doing this with you, and I'm going to figure out how to turn this off now. See you later. Bye-bye.